Hi, and welcome to Business Unusual. I am Liz Whitehead, co-mastermind at Diversity Masterminds, and I'm here with Heather Cox.
Hi, the other co-mastermind of Diversity Masterminds.
And our guest today is our friend and our partner, Ashley Martin from The Leadership Lady.
Hello there.
Hey.
Hey there.
Yeah. So welcome. So we're going to get into what happens when business when business unusual becomes business as usual. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Awesome. So thanks for having me here. As Liz mentioned, Ashley Martin, CEO of Leadership Lady. I started this company to address a need that I saw amongst a lot of circles and spaces in developing people and really helping people get things done and helping people to retain talent that they were losing because of things that were not fixed, that could be fixed, and that were fixable. And so my business essentially helps people learn how to leverage their soft skills and their leadership skills to improve operational efficiency.
What's an example of a soft skill you're talking about?
Yeah, so soft skills, things like communication, right? Things like knowing how to get along with other people, collaboration, people on your team, and learn how to get along with your boss, learn how to get along with clients or customers. Those are extremely important. Sometimes soft skills has this negative connotation, like, oh, you know, I'm just soft or I just don't do anything. And that's not what they are at all. They're really essential human skills. They're think like interpersonal skills that help you leverage your technical skills. You may be the best business person on earth, but if you cannot communicate, if you cannot collaborate, if you don't know how to problem solve, those skills are just kind of sitting there dormant.
So do you, okay, sorry, I was gonna say, do you find that, because as you're seeing these different things, I'm kind of picturing people in my head, right? That you know certain people and you're like, what is wrong? Why would they say that? Okay, but do you think there's any generational component to these soft skills? Because like, I don't know, I think like not necessarily the Xers, but the what's before the Xers? What was before them?
The boomers?
The boomers, maybe. Like I feel like they had to be a lot more like kind of feisty and like in your face, and so they tend to not necessarily always communicate in a way. And you hear this a lot in like intergenerational workplace conversations and breakout sessions. But do you find that there is that component to the soft skills as well?
Absolutely. I mean, and those are it's so layered. There are probably over 70 soft skills that people have. Right. Learning how to manage, how to collaborate, how to communicate, how to get things done, how to delegate, how to prioritize, right? So definitely all of that's influenced by your generation and the age group that you're in, how you grew up and how you communicate.
Right.
And sometimes the disconnect is one generation is communicating a certain kind of way. The other generation is communicating a certain kind of way. They probably want to be received the same way, but they're just speaking like a different language or a different dialect of a different language, of the same language.
Right.
And that's where that disconnect comes in. So you can develop the skill to be able to know how to navigate in your interactions with people who are boomers or Gen Zs, because they have their own language.
Totally. And yeah, like I guess you'll tell us if we all have to learn TikTok and that.
Don't say we have to learn TikTok.
I'm not gonna say you have to learn it. That's just up to you. Like I have a TikTok account. I haven't posted anything.
Yeah, I know. I have one just so I can see.
Videos.
I can see.
I mean, I've seen the videos, but I wouldn't even. I thought TikTok was just like a dance platform at first because everyone was just posting dances, and then it became something else. I don't know.
But to your point, there's some really there's some
like before we get too sidetracked on TikTok, right?
There's some amazing things that people are doing on TikTok with their businesses, and to the point of developing how to connect and communicate with other generations. Sometimes you have to peek in and see what they're doing, and see how you can connect with them.
So how did COVID affect what you do and how you do it?
Right. So My primary services are coaching, one-to-one coaching, training, which involves speaking sometimes, and some consulting. For me, networking face to face was my bread and butter, and how to get clients and meet people and, get engagements and all of that. And then here comes COVID, where
Oh,
we,
yeah.
we can't move and we couldn't go anywhere. So I really had to pivot or swivel
Yes.
and learn how to really tap into offering services virtually and how to market digitally. And so really had to up my game with the digital marketing, the intentionality around it, and making sure I was still the Ashley that people know face to face is still showing up online. And that still kind of is a challenge for me. It's getting better. Because I feel like it's more organic when I'm face to face with somebody.
Absolutely. Yes.
As opposed to I have to think about what I say, and the marketing can't be too logical. You have to have some emotion in it. Whereas a normal business conversation face to face is just like we're talking here. So yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think I've had to shift.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that, and you've seen that with a lot of the diversity masterminds people we send your way, where they're like, oh, I really need to up these materials because there's not going to be this whole presentation, this whole personal thing around it. It's like everything has to kind of stand on its own.
Right.
Do you think people are going to have a hard time switching back to in-person once we go back there?
I don't know that we'll have a hard time, in the sense that it's been a year, right? Since we've gone through quarantine. Huggers will probably have a hard time. So we have to do like virtual hugs. But we'll have to be more careful. Human interaction, human connection is important. And so the whole, being socially distanced, it's important, but it has been a challenge for a lot of people. But it's, it'll work out for our good in the end if we adhere to those guidelines. But
yeah.
So maybe for certain groups of people, it'll be harder, but for others, they don't mind.
Let's jump back in. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It's interesting that you say that too, because I wonder about teams and working together. About, I have clients that are thinking about going back to the office, or like getting an office space when they didn't have one before, because they've recognized the need for their team to be together. But one of my clients was like, are we going to have a water cooler still? Like, are we
right? Who's hanging out the water cooler now?
Yeah. I mean, what do you see with teams that are coming back into a workplace, whether virtually or not? What are some of the challenges you see them dealing with?
Well, I think everybody's had to adjust to the whole hybrid work model. So some people they're completely remote, right? They've shifted to a completely remote culture. And then for some, they're able to go to work in the building face to face sometimes, and others. So I think people are going to have to really learn how to be intentional with building their culture and still creating an environment where people can still thrive at the work that they do, whether they're showing up and it's a remote workforce, or they're face to face, or they have a hybrid situation going on. I think leaders and managers are going to have to be very intentional about how to bring their team together.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that sounds really hard.
Just take some work.
There are
people who can help you with that.
Intentionality, Liz, which we talk about all the time. Intentionality.
I mean,
that's all it is. It's just a different version of it.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's true. It's just, I feel like they're going to need you because it's different. Like, all right, let's have a team meeting. Well, do we have a team meeting in the office or out of the office? And then do we have it with everyone that's here? Like, my client was even saying, well, we might have to give everybody an office, so you don't have like 3 people in one Zoom box and then one person in another, because then everyone doesn't get the same amount of airtime. It was like, this is a lot to think about.
I even think that this switch from, at Certify My Company, we've always been remote. We've always been virtual for the most part. Since I went from one employee to more than one, we were always remote. So I kind of had to learn to manage. But now that we're like spread across the country, I know I've had a challenge really keeping that team feeling amongst everybody. So we do, you know, every other week we do a team meeting in the morning and we talk about successes and different things. And I'm like always sending like Starbucks cards to them and like doing different little cutesy things, but it's still very challenging, I think, to have that same culture when you're spread out. Now that problem was pre-pandemic if you always had a remote team, but for some leaders it's a newer problem on top of everything else they're dealing with.
Right.
So are you doing those kind of virtual consultings at this point where you're saying, okay, let's talk about how you can still lead this team of different personalities in different locations in different time zones,
right,
and still be an impactful leader?
Right. And so, yeah, so I'm available to help people with all of those things. We've, you know, there's a lot of consultations around like leadership styles and learning styles, which is all a part of culture, right? Just knowing your team is extremely important. But to your point of what you said, like it takes some of those cutesy things and things that help brighten people's day for them to stay motivated sometimes, especially through something like this. And so there are things that can be done. Definitely things to consider based on a business's unique position.
Right.
You know, some people are international, so they're trying to figure out how do we keep everybody on track. And it's just a matter of really thinking through your company culture, the goals that you have, right? And then planning for it. And then executing. And if something doesn't work out, guess what? Iterate. If that didn't work out, let's try something different.
What about, okay, now you said something that made me think about something totally not related to anything else you're talking about, but you said you have to know your team. Are you a proponent, as a leadership lady, of personality tests?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a good question. I like,
because there's a plethora of personality test options out there, from Myers-Briggs to, you know, like Sally Hogshead has one, and there's like the Strength Finder, which we use a lot of. Like, do you have one that you love? Or are they all kind of?
That's a good question. That's a great question. I love it. I am a proponent of assessments. I'm a proponent of
assessments, not tests. You're right. That's the proper verbiage, right?
It's the test. I'm just gonna use it's the test assessment. I am a proponent of multiple types of tests because there's some that just measure your personality, but there are others that I think are, we're gonna use the word intentional again, a little bit more intentional about measuring somebody's behavior.
Oh, interesting.
And so when you're talking about shifting or changing or improving something, sometimes people, they know who their people are, right? They know that Bob is an extrovert, right? Sarah is an introvert, right? Or Ashley's an ambivert.
Right? What is that?
I've never heard of that one. That's a little bit of both, right? So it's kind of those, and there's a lot of people that are like that. They need their time to rejuvenate, and then they need time with people. And
interesting.
Right. Yeah. So back to,
I would think that's most people.
It's a lot of people.
I mean, wouldn't you say then like extroverts are people who like fall further along the spectrum of needing people versus, you know what I mean? Because like I definitely need time away from my children, but not necessarily away from people.
Right. And there's different degrees of that. And so with that in mind, though, you know, those are personality traits, but there's also something to behavior. So when you're working with people and you want to change their behavior, there are different tests that you can use that will assess their behavior so that you can make proper changes. Because sometimes people will say, well, I'm just like this, or Bob's just like this, or Sarah's just like this, and what are we going to do with them, or X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And that can be hindering to the organization. It can be hindering and stifling to their growth as a professional, right? And so when you're talking about you want to grow and develop people, you want to keep the team together, let's start looking at their behaviors and see how they're showing up in a particular thing and why. And there are tons of assessments. Harrison is, I'm a big fan of Harrison because it does a little bit of personality and behavior. Berkman's another good one. DISC is another good one. So it just depends on what you want to measure. They're all different. Yeah.
So here's what I need to figure out how to measure. And I think that this is true of all entrepreneurs who are hiring is, and I don't know another way to say it, but like stick-to-itiveness. You could call it grit, right? There's that book, Grit. I don't like the test they give you in grit because it's kind of leading. Like it says, do you have grit? Yes or no? That's not a good question. That's like a leading question, leading the witness, as they say, right? In court. Right. So like that, like people who are going to persevere through the hard times. Because
right. Well,
and the test that tests that. That's what I want to know.
Say it one more time.
That's the test I want to find. And I think most entrepreneurs who have to hire are in that same boat. Like they want somebody who's not just going to give up when things get a little more challenging.
Right. So that's it. That's a good point. And to the assessment and the test question, there's different ways to capture data. All tests do is give you information that you need to know to make a decision, right?
Right.
And so you can do formal assessments, or you can I'm a big fan of just having conversations with people. They'll tell you so much that you need to know that'll help with, that sometimes an assessment, many times an assessment won't capture. It's just giving you additional data. But I think to your point of knowing like how tenacious is this person, how gritty are they?
Yes.
Right?
Like some grit.
Yeah. Like ask them about their experiences. Ask them what happened. What's one of the most challenging things you've ever dealt with, personally and or professionally? How did you respond? How did you get through it? And that'll tell you a lot.
So is this like a type of consulting you can also do with people, is sit through interviews with them or help them assess their candidates?
Right.
All you entrepreneurs out there, this is a very valuable need. Everyone needs.
Right. One thing that like a client did or an idea that you gave them that you think yielded great results, especially during COVID-19 when everything turned upside down.
Right. Oh gosh, let's think. I've had some amazing clients. So I'm just like, I'm trying to think. They're all different industries. Common thread, they're all leaders, or they call the shots. Right. Whether they're the founder, CEO, or they're a senior level manager. But I'm thinking about one in particular who was really trying to get her team ready to grow, because she was getting ready to open up another location. She had to, and she's getting ready to open another location. She's the boss. She had a team of about 5 or 6, and she really wanted everybody to grow as a leader so that they weren't coming to her as often with particular problems or how to close a sale or how to close a high ticket item, right? The very interesting thing about working with this particular group was that the leader, it was really big on developing her people and learning how they learned. So we did some training. We did like a 2-day lunch and learn style, virtual lunch and learn style, all about their learning styles, right? Which is a thing. I have an educational background. And so it worked out perfectly. Their learning styles and then their leadership style.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because how somebody learns is extremely important in how you develop them. Mm-hmm. And so we did some work around, how they learned, and they're smart, it's a whole theory. I'm not gonna bore you with the theory stuff. It fascinates me, but I'm not gonna bore you with it. But essentially, and in essence, there's a theory called multiple intelligences that says that we are all smart at something. It's not about the fact that you're smart at something. It's about how you're smart. And so we did some work around that. And then day 2, we wrapped things up with leadership style and learning about Goldman Sachs leadership styles and when you need to use which style, because there's some theories out there and some assessments that will tell you you're this kind of leader, right? Or you lead with this, which is sometimes people have a dominant style. Some people are more democratic. Some people are more autocratic, my way or the highway. People say they run a tight ship. Some people are more coaching, but this theory I like because he breaks down how sometimes you have to lead with a different type of, you have to just lead differently.
Yeah.
You know, so so it's just helping people be aware of when to use which style and which one they have is more dominant and where they need to develop, did wonders for her team. And so they're moving along. You know, better communication. She's less stressed because now her sales manager is more confident because they're more aware of what it is that they're working with and where they need to develop.
So let me ask you a question, a little bit off topic, but you know, most of the work that we do at Diversity, or I'd say all the work we do at Diversity Masterminds is with diverse suppliers, right? So you are certified through NMSDC and WeBank, correct?
NMSDC pending, so we're gonna say yes because it's already done. WeBank, yes.
Yes, nice. Okay, so other than you know, we met at Tuck, which was an amazing benefit of being a certified diverse owned business, right? Was being part of the Tuck program, which we talk a lot about the company development outside the business development components of certification. So what else have you found has been beneficial from your certification perspective?
Man, the network, you know, this the value of the network, first of all.
It's unbelievable, right?
Right, from the professional development that you can get from that in and of itself to being able to know how to leverage certain things. I didn't know when I first started my business, I was like, I don't know how to package this. I don't know what to do with this. I know there's something here.
Like, I have something.
Something, because people are asking me. I'm like, but I didn't know how to package it. I didn't really know how. I didn't know about the world out there of professional development. And learning and development and coaching and all of that. I didn't know anything about that. But, you know, having gotten connected with certifications, who, you know, someone told me about who's a veteran-owned certified business, like, you should really go after your women's.
Yes.
And so I just started Googling and, you know, all that and connected, and the rest is history, you know. The rest is history.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's great that you use the network too.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we like to ask people, coronavirus is on its way out. There's
bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah. But what's one thing that you'd like to see stay from this time?
Oh, that's a good question. I would like to see people be more human.
I mean, that you've seen more humanity in people during the pandemic, and you'd like that to stay.
Right. The care, the consideration. I would love to see that stay around. I would love to see the innovation that COVID has pulled out of people, you know, stay around, and the creativity. I don't think virtual or remote work is going anywhere. So you know, that's another opportunity. I think with any disruption or disaster, there comes opportunity.
Very optimistic perspective.
Yeah, I have to. I have to be. There's no other way for me. Like, it's something good's gonna come out of it. But yeah, I would love to see people remain caring, considerate, compassionate, innovative, allowing their creative juices to flow. But I'm ready to travel, y'all. I'm ready. I need to go somewhere.
You know, so NGLCC has their in-person conference online. I already booked my plane ticket.
So people are going to need you, I think, more and more as we shift again. We shift again to whatever, you know, we're going back to business unusually. How do they reach you? How do they find you?
Oh, well, you can find me on my website, www.leadershiplady.com. You can email me, info@leadershiplady.com. You can find me on LinkedIn and just reach out. We're also on Instagram at leadership.lady on IG.
Great.
Channels.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you next time on Business Unusual.